Hey, what's going on, everybody? Manny here once again. Welcome to DFS Zone, your source for daily fantasy sport lineup advice for the NBA and the NFL. Got a brand new video for you, ladies and gentlemen, today. Before I get started with the video, like always, I appreciate you guys drop a like on the video. And if you're new to the channel, first time here, and you are not as of yet become a part of the DFS Zone community here, the only thing you have to do to be a part of the DFS Zone community is to subscribe down below and make sure you turn on that bell icon, turn that on, so this way you are notified right away when I post up a new NBA or NFL lineup advice video. With that being said, today is Friday, November the 23rd, 2018. I hope everybody had a wonderful, healthy, happy Thanksgiving with their family and friends. Yesterday, back to the drawing board, back to the grind here again with the NBA. We have a large slate again today. There were a couple of games played earlier, so I think this is a 12-game slate? I think it's an 11, 12-game slate. Pretty large, just like the other day. But I'm going back to my regular format. I got a stud 5 and a value 5 for you guys. And right away, let's just dive right into it, man. At point guard today, definitely loving. I'm going to come right down to it, man. It's a couple of guys obviously in play. I like Kyrie Irving in this matchup against Atlanta, but then again, you have to, there's always that concern of a blowout situation. But I'm going to come down to Kyle Lowry today. I think Kyle Lowry is a nice option for us today here at DFS Zone. He's coming in at 15 points, 4.6 rebounds, 10 assists, 10.5 assists a game. He is the top leader in assists in the NBA. He's averaging 39 fantasy points per game, as you can see here on FanDuel, and he's $8,000 price tag today, which I think is a very fair price tag. You only need 40 here. He's the same price on DK, so I think on either one of the platforms he will be just fine. Had a nice massive game here, 59 spot pretty much against Atlanta the other day. Let's go over to Fantasy Cruncher, and we'll take a look at him a little bit closer. He's going up against Washington today, man. Last few games, granted, he had a little off game here. He's been a little off. He was downtrending for the last 5 or 6 games. His usage rate was below 20%. He went back to 20% in the last game. His shots are there. He's going to get more than enough shots. His usage rate is on average maybe about 17, 18%. And on given good days where he's really shooting the ball well, he'll get a little bit more featured there. He'll get maybe more closer to 19, 20%. He's taking about 11, I would say about 10, 11 shots per game. And he's also shooting some threes. So he's averaging about maybe 6 threes per game. And of course, we know he's going to pass the ball. He's also capable of getting rebounds. In this last game, he has 17 assists and 12 rebounds. That's a massive game by him. So he's more than capable of getting the assists. The rebounds is definitely a surprise, but it's definitely a nice surprise to see. And on top of that, he is capable of getting some steals. He's not the greatest defender. He's not going to go and get blocks, but he does definitely had a stretch here, as you can see. 5, 6 steals over the last 4 games, so not too bad for Mr. Lowry. This is a great matchup for him against Washington. He doesn't have huge numbers against Washington, but as you can see last year, he definitely was in the green a lot. He did put 52 once. He did a 51 spot earlier this year in October 20th. He put pretty much a 52 spot in 35 minutes, and he's had 41, 42, 38, 39, 39. Solid outings. Washington comes in here 30th, dead last in defending point guards thus far this year. They really are struggling in that department. 26th in fantasy points per game allowed to point guards thus far this year. I calculated the last 3 games because I know in the last 3 games they have had their issues. In the last 3 games, they've given up 40.4 fantasy points per game. 40. They gave up 56 to Damian Lillard, 37.6 to D'Angelo Russell of the Nets, and 27 to Colin Sexton. Now, Kyle Lowry is right there within those guys, probably even a better ball player than D'Angelo Russell. So I feel he is capable of getting his 40 or more in this matchup. He should be able to. And I think Washington will hang in here long enough for Toronto to be able for Lowry and even Leonard to have very, very solid games against these guys. So Kyle Lowry is in play for me today. As far as getting someone below value, now granted, Westbrook is someone that I may consider here. Against Charlotte. 55 you need from him, so he might be someone that I might have some consideration as far as maybe 1 or 2 lines, maybe not a whole lot. But like I said, I definitely like Kyrie Irving here as well. Kyle Lowry's in play. I do like Bledsoe here as well against Phoenix. I like to mention a few plays because people have to understand, I give you Kyle Lowry, it doesn't mean he's a lock. He is definitely someone I am going to have a lot of exposure to. It's just a recommendation to you guys. Nothing is guaranteed. I cannot stress that enough. I don't want anybody to think that you have or you must play Kyle Lowry. My whole thing here is just like anybody else who's giving advice out there. We're doing what we can to give you what we believe may be a pretty decent play for you guys. But it's not set in stone. It's not guaranteed. There's a lot of, with a large slate like this, there's a lot of different plays, a lot of different ways you can go, a lot of players you can use. You can decide to pay down at point guard today and get some value down below. There's pretty much some value in almost every position here today in this slate because it is a large slate. All right, so keep that in mind. So Eric Bledsoe is another viable play here, 7,300. He's been playing solid going up against Phoenix. I like him. I think I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Eric Bledsoe as well. You always have that 50-point potential with Jamal Murray, especially with him at home. Going up against Orlando might be a nice matchup. DJ Augustin has been solid against point guards this year, so a little concerned there. You come down, you got Colin Sexton. But as far as getting down real value, I'm going to come down to my own New York Knick, Trey Burke. I like the way Trey's been playing, and I said it in my chat and in the Slack chat group during the course of the Knick game on Wednesday, that I believe Trey Burke has shown that he should be one of the regular guys in the rotation and should get maximum amount of minutes. I think guys like Vonleh, obviously the main guy in New York that you know you're going to get exposure to, you could give exposure to all the time because he's going to get usage and minutes and he's going to get touches, is Tim Hardaway Jr. We know he is the man. But now we're starting to see that if they apply themselves as the New York Knicks, could put in Burke, could keep Hardaway in play, obviously, and then bring in a little bit of Vonleh, who's been pretty much getting involved in here. And then you got Cantor. You have, a little basis. You have a little bit of enough players that you can actually build around. So Trey Burke is definitely someone I'm considering here. 4,900. He's 4,400 on DK. He's averaging, as you can see here, nearly 14 points a game, 2.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, almost 4 assists a game, 22.6 fantasy points per game. He's been solid. 4 straight games, 25 minutes or better, as much as 31 minutes. And look at the scoring, 24, 31, 19, 29. We know the guy can score. But what I like to see here is what he did here in this last game. He has 6 rebounds and 11 assists and 2 steals. He got involved. Turnovers are a little high. Needs to cut those down. But he's been pretty solid for the New York Knickerbockers. Let's go. Where is Trey at? Trey Burke. They got him way up here today. Trey Burke, solid. Look at the green here. Look at the usage rate when he's on the floor and he's taking shots. I mean, he definitely takes over offensively. 20, 15, 20, 13. I mean, his shot selection over the last 4 games is at least 14, 15 shots per game. And he's taking about 5 threes per game as well, or 4 or 5 threes. The usage rate is there, over 29%, over 24%, 25, 39, 29, and 32 minutes are there. So, I mean, you're getting great value of him. His price tag is still pretty good, and we have to take advantage of it because if they continue to play him and he continues to do what he's doing here, he's going to be up at 6,500 and 7K maybe within the next 2 or 3 games. So we have to take advantage of the price tag. The minutes are there. The points are there. I love him. I definitely do. He's trending upward. His home and away splits have been pretty good at home as well. He's shooting 37% as far as 3-ball. His 3% shooting at home has been better than on the road. He's better on the road as far as field goal percentage. But, I mean, nonetheless, I mean, he's still shooting 46% from the floor. And he's averaging about 20 fantasy points per game at home thus far this year and 27 on the road. So, I mean, again, they did play against New Orleans. New Orleans is 29th in defending point guards, as you can see here. They are 23rd in fantasy points per game given up. They've given up 31.6 fantasy points per game over the last 5 games. They've given up 40 to Teague, 25 to Murray, 37 to Moutier against the Knicks in the last game that they played. Again, Moutier was in effect in the last game. I still believe that he will do just fine here as well. He did play 26 minutes against New Orleans in that game, even while Moutier played. So, I mean, and he was able to take out 13 shots. I still think he is definitely a fine play here. And the way in the direction that he's trending and in the way I would think that Coach Fizdale should be able to put this guy on the court to play 25 to 30 minutes or better. So Trey Burke is definitely a fine play at 4,900. If you're looking for even cheaper, I haven't really looked at them, but I mean, again, Oladipo is out again, so obviously Aaron Holiday, a lot of guys at the chat group were praising him, been utilizing him. He may be someone to consider. Terry Rozier also in this game possibility. You never know if Atlanta gets blown out in this game. You can consider Terry Rozier. We can discuss that more with the rest of the crew in the chat group later on today. Let's go to shooting guard. At shooting guard, Oladipo out, DeRozan, Jimmy Butler. Look, a lot of these guys, a couple of these guys are in play. These guys are all priced fairly good here on FanDuel. I mean, DeRozan is a guy that's over 9K. Jimmy Butler is an over 9K player. He's just not quite there yet. I'm not willing to pay up for those guys. Plus, the Philadelphia-Cleveland game should be a little competitive. I do think San Antonio and Indiana will be competitive enough because Indiana is tough defensively. But I'm going to come down. You definitely have to have some exposure. I will have some exposure to LaVine. I like LaVine here in this matchup against Miami. They still have a lot of injuries, and he is the main focal point offensively for Chicago. So he is definitely someone in play at 8,500. Come down to Jrue Holiday, obviously against the Knicks. He's definitely someone that I'm going to have some exposure to. I'm actually going to have some exposure to the Knicks New Orleans game as a stack. I could see 5 to 6 plays easily there. I already have looked over those numbers, and I definitely like at least 5 or 6 players there. So that's a game you can definitely stack because it is one of the higher implied total games for tonight. Devin Booker definitely in another nice spot here against Milwaukee, 7,900. He's pretty good. But I'm going to come down here. I really like these mid 7,000 range guys. Donovan Mitchell at 7,600 against the Lakers. Definitely a good matchup for him. Tim Hardaway against New Orleans at 7,400. He's already proven that he's capable of scoring 30 points a night. And then Chris Middleton against Phoenix at 7,200. I love those prices. I'm going to have the most exposure to these 3 gentlemen right here. Plain and simple. So you can pick and choose whoever you want. But I'm going to discuss Donovan Mitchell here because he was one of my best guys that I loved late last year. And he hasn't panned out that well this year, but he's starting to turn it around a little bit. He's trending a little bit upward, as you can see here. 3 out of his last 4 games over 40+. The minutes are there, 32 or better. He's averaging 21.5 points per game, 2.6 rebounds, nearly 4 assists a game, averaging 34 fantasy points per game at 7,600. You pretty much only need 37 from him, and on DK, he's 7,400. You pretty much need the same. 36, 37 is what you need from him, and he's averaging 34. Is pretty darn close. Pretty darn close, and he's been trending well as of late. He's been trending upward. Donovan Mitchell, as you can see, 47-49. He had this Doug game blowout here where he didn't really have to do anything more. Even though he played 32 minutes, it was just not happening for the Utah Jazz against Indy. 43.9, pretty much a 44 spot here in this last game against Sacramento in a nice up-tempo game. No different here, man. The Lakers have improved defensively as of late. They were giving up at one point 120, 123 points per game to opposition. They have narrowed that down to about 114, 115 now. So they're going to get better as they go defensively, as they keep building that team chemistry. And, of course, with LeBron James there, you know the defense is going to come eventually from these kids. So, but, again, Utah, who's been playing a little bit more paced up this year, different type of team. Again, look at Donovan Mitchell. Just the minutes are there. The usage rate, we know he's going to take shots. He is the main offensive threat on this team. 23 shots in the last game and 9 threes. And he's going to keep doing that. So we're not concerned. We know we're going to get usage out of him. We know we're going to get minutes. We know we're going to get shots. It's about him putting the shots down, burying them. He needs to do better. He took 35 shots in this game, only hit 13, and 1 of 11 from 3. Granted, he put up 47. He would have been almost like 70 or so if he would have really buried most of those shots. Then again, if he would have buried most of those shots, it wouldn't have even been close of a game. So you got to look at it that way as well for the 34 minutes he played. But again, solid play here, going up against the 30th ranked team defending shooting guards thus far this year. In the Lakers, they have allowing 32.9 fantasy points per game, pretty much 33 fantasy points per game. They gave up 34 and 39 respectively in 2 games to Mr. McCollum, 46 to Bazemore, 49 to Butler, and 38 to Josh Okogie. 38. They all been defended by Mr. Brandon Ingram. Ingram is not a bad defender, but nonetheless, I still like the matchup. I still like the fact that this game is going to be a little bit up in pace, and Donovan Mitchell usually plays fairly well in this type of atmosphere. And going up against LeBron and going up against the Lakers, you know he's going to be a little fired up. So I kind of like him there. There's other than him, obviously, I am also, like I said, having some exposure to Tim Hardaway Jr. I mean, you can't pass up Tim Hardaway Jr. New Orleans in their last 5 games have given up 35.6 fantasy points per game, and one of the obviously big games they gave to was to Mr. Hardaway, who put up 45 against them. They did give up 46 to Wiggins and 42 to Mr. Gary Harris and 36 to DeMar DeRozan. So I like him there as well. And then, of course, like I said, I do like Chris Middleton as well. So either one of these, any one of these 3 here at this price range, I think is not a bad play for any one of us here today. All right. If you're looking for someone cheaper down here, Jordan Clarkson at 5,200 could be a viable play here. You need about 26 from him. I think he's been playing well. Malcolm Brogdon has been playing very, very well. Also, a little bit of a downward. He's going downward as far as the trend with him in the last game or two, but still nonetheless getting fair enough minutes. Pat Connaughton has been definitely getting some more minutes in Milwaukee, and that's one of the reasons why Mr. Brogdon is getting a little bit less minutes, is because Mr. Pat Connaughton has been playing so well. So, guys, those are guys you can consider. We could discuss more of those guys later on. At small forward, we're going to go right over to small forward. And over here, I mean, Giannis obviously is the top dog, but they're playing against Phoenix. I just don't want to pay up for 11 or even LeBron James in games like these. I mean, LeBron probably is a little bit more competitive game against Utah at home, but still you need about 55 from him. He's averaging 52. Kyle Lowry stands out at 9,800. He's definitely a 10K, potential guy. He's at 9,800. Still not much of a discount there. I'm going to think the best discount here with the best upside is Paul George. I mean, he's 8,800. He's $1,000 cheaper than Kawhi Leonard and nearly 3,000 less than the other guys. This is a guy that gets tons of usage rate, plays maximum amount of minutes, gets a lot of shots off, and is capable of putting up 50 or better any given night. 24.3 points per game, 24 a game, 8 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 46.5 fantasy points per game at 8,800. You only need 44. That's below his average. And on DK, he's 86. You need 42 there. Both platforms, he is definitely someone you can consider. The minutes are there, as you can see. Let's go over to the cruncher and take a look at him a little bit further. And Paul George, as you can see right here, his numbers have been looking pretty darn good. Even with Westbrook out a few games, he still was able to, even with Westbrook back, he's still taking. Last 2 games, Westbrook has played 23 and 24 shots. So the minutes are there, 35 or better. The usage rate is there. It's him and Paul George. It's Paul George, and Russell. These are the 2 main characters on the team. Now they got Dennis Schroeder. Again, 23, 24, 22. Look at the shots. He's taking about 10 to 11 threes per game. The only problem here in the last few games, as you can see, his shooting percentage has been poor. That's the only thing. But we know for the price that we're getting him for here, 88 and 86 respectively on DK, he's a solid play with the amount of usage he gets. He gets more than enough usage. He takes more than enough shots. He has more than enough shots here that if he buries 40 to 45% of his shots from the floor and from 3, he will definitely pay off this price and then some. And on top of that, he does all the other things. He can rebound, he can pass the ball, and he definitely defends. He gets his occasional 2 or 3 steals a game, as you can see, and he's capable of having games where he gets a few blocks. All that is additional fantasy points for us. So Paul George at this price tag, with the potential to get you 50 or better, I think it's a solid play. Solid play. Going up against Charlotte. Charlotte's 21st in defending small forwards, 18th in fantasy points per game, 2 small forwards. They're giving up 34 to Tatum, 29 to J.R. Smith, 24 to Covington, 24 to Osman, 46.5 to George. And they gave up 46.5 to Mr. Paul George already. George is the only stud small forward they have faced this year. And they're going to face him again, and he already put up 46 against them. So I love the matchup right here against Charlotte. Definitely Paul George is my stud forward for today. I'll have the most exposure to him. And other than him, if I'm going to pay down and you want to get someone of value really cheap that could probably get you some minutes and get you the fantasy points you need, I kind of like the situation here with Washington. I told the guys in the chat, I'm not playing nobody in Washington. The only one that I would consider is Jeff Green. I'm tired of going after Beal or Oubre or Porter. I had enough with them. Washington is so messed up right now. They're so dysfunctional. Until they get their act together, I'll stick to someone who's been consistent, and that's Mr. Jeff Green. He's been the MVP of this team, if you ask me, the way he's been playing. Getting more than enough minutes for his price tag of $4,200. He put up 20 points in his last game, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 block, 1 steal, a 39 spot against the Clippers. He's averaging 11 points, 5 rebounds, just pretty much 1 assist a game. 22 fantasy points per game. At 42, you need 21. On DK's 43, you need the same thing. 21, 22 fantasy points will do it. And I think he is capable of doing that here tonight. Go over to Mr. Green. Now, granted, Toronto's been fairly good against small forwards. But nonetheless, look how solid he has been. He's definitely good enough for a cash play for you cash play players. 38, 27, 22, 33, 32, 20, The minutes are there, pretty consistent with minutes, anywhere between 24 to as much as 26 minutes. And his usage rate, pretty much about 16, I would say 16, 17%. When he's on the court, he does get his share of shots. And granted, he was very, very good, very efficient here in his last game. The game before that didn't shoot as well, still got 27 fantasy points, definitely still crushed value. And as you can see, he is pretty much a 1 fantasy point per minute player thus far this year. If you look at that, I mean, yeah, the numbers are just there. Pretty much about 1 fantasy point per minute over the last 6 or 7 games. And he's capable of getting rebounds, capable of assisting the ball, and he's capable of defending, getting some blocks and some steals, more so steals, but he's getting them, as you can see here. His stat line is looking pretty darn decent. Jeff Green, the longest stay there. Dwight Howard is out. We know he's going to get minutes. And as poor as Oubre has been playing, as poor as what Porter's been playing, he's been the one that's most consistent. I would say he's going to still get his 25 to 28 minutes. Jeff Green is a solid play here for you guys at 4,200 with a little bit of upside. All right. We go over to power forward. At power forward, obviously the guy that stands out is Anthony Davis. Did put 70, I think, easily against the New York Knicks the last game out. But, again, that was at home, okay? He is going on the road, and I looked at his home and away splits, and on the road he is definitely not as good as he is at home. At home, he's shooting 52%, on the road 43%, and at home he's shooting 37% from 3, on the road 27%. And at home, he's 63.5 fantasy points per game. On the road, he's only putting up 54 fantasy points per game. Granted, 54 is nothing to be slouched about, but again, 12,500, you need about 62, 63 fantasy points there, which is above his average. And against the Knicks that have been playing fairly well against, they went right to the wire with Portland, right to the wire the other day, played very well. They're playing good basketball right now, and they're starting, like I said to some guys in the chat group, I know I'm a New York Knicks fan, but I like to see that the young kids, it seems like Vonleh, Cantor, Hardaway, Burke, I think those are the key components to the team right now. I think those guys are starting to get it together. I would not be surprised if they clamp down on Anthony Davis today and not put him in a position to put up 70. I don't know if he will. We all know he is capable of doing it, but I'm not willing to pay for that. Look at all these guys with value here underneath it. Just the 2 guys underneath there are in more favorable matchups. LaMarcus Aldridge I like here. And I'm not high on LaMarcus Aldridge. If anybody has been around me for a few weeks, I've mentioned how I find him kind of boring and so on and so forth. But he's played well enough. But here, his price tag at $8,000, only $40, going up against Indiana, which right now Indiana has Sabonis, who is game time decision, and so as Mr. Turner. Now, again, this is if any one of these 2 guys, Sabonis or Turner or both, are out, I love a whole lot of LaMarcus Aldridge at this point in time, if that is going to be the case. So that's all going to come down to paying attention to the injury report all the way up to game time. And if those guys are out or one of those guys are out, I'm definitely going to have some exposure to LaMarcus Aldridge. So I like LaMarcus Aldridge here. On DK, he's 7,800. You need 38. He's averaging 37. We come over here to take a look at him a little bit more further. And granted, not a whole lot of green here. He's been terrible, but again, minutes, usage rate are there, over 20%. Minutes are there. The last 2 games out of 3, 40 minutes or better, and he's going to take some shots because he's an important piece of the pie here as far as offensively. They need to be able to get him as far as DeRozan as well. They're going to be the key 2 components for this team. So you're going to get rebounds from him. You're going to get a little bit of defense. I like the matchup, man. I like the factors that he has the potential. We know he has 50-point upside for an 8,000 price tag. They're going up against Indy. Indy here is 19th defending against power forwards. They're 18th in fantasy points allowed to power forwards thus far this year. They're only allowing 20 fantasy points per game, but they haven't faced any top-tier stud power forwards. Not to say that he is the top-tier forward, but he is capable of putting up those numbers. They have faced, the only guy that they have put up decent numbers against them was Jason Tatum. Tatum put up 28, and Robert Covington put up 30. And he got LaMarcus Aldridge here, who could play a little bit of center, who mostly plays the 4 and 5 pretty much for this team. He's going to be in a nice spot here if there is no Turner. No Miles Turner, no Sabonis. I could see him doing okay against Thaddeus Young and company. All right? So I'll like a lot of him. They haven't faced a whole lot of guys. 2 times James Ennis, Magruder 2 times, only put up 20 and 24. And Joe Ingles put up 13.7 fantasy points against them. Again, LaMarcus Aldridge is a little bit more of an offensive threat than those guys, especially for the style of play and the skill set that he brings to his team for the San Antonio Spurs. So if there's going to be any vulnerability up front for Indiana is if any of those two guys are out. So again, keep him in mind and stay on top of the injury news. Other than him, if you're not going to play LaMarcus Aldridge, hey, Aaron Gordon here against Denver. Now, granted, Denver has been playing well. They have really been a good defensive team all the way around, but you got a 50-point-plus upside guy here playing, and he's only 7,600. You know, I'll take a stab at him. I don't see no reason why not. 7,600 here. He's 7,000 on DK. You only need 35. You only need about 35, 36 here as well. And he's put up 34 and 37 in the last few games. So he has 40-point upside. We know he has 50-point upside. Okay, let's go and look for him right here. And granted, they're playing number one defense against power forwards. But again, they've had some vulnerability in the last few games. I'm going to touch upon that in a moment. But Aaron Gordon, 37, 29, 29 over the last few games. Look at the usage rate. When he's on the court, he's going to get some time he's going to get some touches. 22, maybe about 22, 23% on average. And look at the shots. Anywhere between 13 to 14 shots per game. Last two games, he's shooting a little bit more. The minutes are up, and the usage rate is even up during the course of those last two games. And he brings a little bit to the table. He can shoot some threes, maybe about 3 or 4 on average per game. He gets to the foul line. He's able to get the rebounds. He's able to distribute the ball and get some assists. Got to clean up the turnovers, all right, because that'll hurt us here with fantasy points. We'll lose those. But he gets some steals and he gets some blocks. And I think he's in a good matchup here. Good matchup here against Denver because, I mean, you think of Paul Millsap and then you think of Aaron Gordon. I think Aaron Gordon could definitely do some work on Paul Millsap. And when we think about it here, it says Denver is first against defending against power forwards. Another thing also about Aaron Gordon that I didn't mention, he's pretty much the same all the way. He's balanced all the way from his home and away splits. He's pretty good on the road as well as at home, away. 48% field goal percentage and shooting 48% field goal percentage on the road as well as at home. And then he's averaging 34 fantasy points per game over the last few games, which I definitely like. And then we go over to Denver. Denver is in the last 5 games, Denver has given up 41.3 fantasy points per game, all defended by Paul Millsap. They gave up 54 and 51 to Giannis, 37 to Mr. Spellman, 64 to Anthony Davis, and 43 to Jaren Jackson Jr. Now, 43 to Jaren Jackson Jr. and Spellman stand out for me because, I mean, when we think about Davis and we think of Giannis, we're talking about two of probably the best basketball players in the NBA. So those are totally different animals than Aaron Gordon. But I think Aaron Gordon fits in there well with the Jaren Jacksons and Spellmans of the world today. So I think he's going to be in a very, very good spot here today to produce some good numbers. At 7,600, man, I think he's just a fair price tag over Siakam and Ibaka that are probably going to be. Ibaka's probably going to be playing center in this game against Washington, but these guys are priced almost about where they're just like you can't really touch them, man. You got to see these guys put up about 40 to 50 on a regular basis for me to actually pay for these guys. So I think they're kind of like priced out a little bit right now at the moment. And today's matchup, I just kind of like these two guys better for their price tags. All right. If you're going to pay down at this level, I mean, Larry Nance Jr. will fit in fine at 5,600. I think he had a nice game the other day against his former team. Maybe they'll keep him there to play a little bit more. He's got an advantage here with Philly. I mean, he's only going to be dealing with Wilson Chandler. Granted, Wilson Chandler is not a bad ball player. And then if you're going to come down a little bit more, I kind of like these guys like John Collins here for Atlanta against Boston. I think that's a nice little spot. And then Mr. Vonleh for the Knicks, which I've already expressed how I think some of the Knicks players are playing now. I think he is in a good spot. And I'm going to have some exposure possibly also to Marcus Morris because he is a guy that can get you 35, 40, and he's priced down pretty nice too in a favorable matchup against Atlanta. So those are guys that I think you guys should definitely be considering. All right, now we up to center. At center today, man, I mean, Embiid is obviously, he's a beast. We discuss it all the time. He's just a plain animal. He's a savage. We know he's going to get his. This is not a bad spot for Embiid. I think he will get his 50 to 55 in this game. But the price tag, I just don't want to pay up because I think at center today, you can pay all the way down or you can stay right here. Now, if you wanted to go with Embiid, fine. I would not say at all that anybody should not be on Embiid. If you want to make a lineup with him, definitely pencil him in. If you can pay up for him, I think he's a solid play. But Jokic and Vucevic going against one another, this is not bad either. Definitely like Vucevic here for 9,000. You only need 45, and he's averaging 43. Jokic is a little bit up right now. Whiteside is also in a good spot against Chicago. They don't got no center, but again, there's just not consistency from Whiteside, so I'm a little concerned there. I do like Rudy Gobert a lot here at 7,900. He is 7,500 on DK. I will speak upon him, but there's also Jusuf Nurkic is definitely in a nice spot too at 7,800, and his price tag on DK is really, really appealing. 6,600. You only need 33 over there, so definitely keep an eye or at least have some exposure to him there. And then, of course, I definitely like these two guys here. Ayton at 6,800 against Milwaukee, who doesn't have a strong center in their spot. And then you have here Enes Kanter. Enes Kanter for the Knicks, if they leave him on the court, we discussed this a lot in the chat room, guys. If this guy could play 30-plus minutes, he will put up 40 fantasy points or better every single night. I just don't know why they're not doing that. And in the last game, they only played him 22 minutes. I'm a little concerned with him there, but I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Ayton and Kanter today because that price tag, you can't go wrong. Kanter on DK is 6,000 and Ayton is 6,400 on DK. All very favorable price tags in good positions as far as who they go up there. You got Ayton going up. That's first thing. Kanter going up against New Orleans. New Orleans is 10th in defending centers. They're 22nd in fantasy points per game allowed to centers. They have given up 37 fantasy points per game. They gave up 51 to Jokic, 50 to Towns, 39 to Ibaka, 37 to Ayton, 44 to Ulrich, and 41 to Wendell Carter Jr. So I don't see why Kanter cannot get 40 or better in this matchup if they play him 30-plus minutes. So New York play Kanter for 30-plus minutes. And then Ayton is definitely in a good spot as well. They're going up against Ayton is going up against Milwaukee. They're allowing 30.2 fantasy points per game. Over the last 6 games, they've given up 33 and 39 respectively to Jokic, which is not a whole lot for Jokic because Jokic is a 50-plus guy. But 39 to Gasol, 31 to Nurkic, 36 to Mr. Horford, and 45 to Serge Ibaka. So, I mean, definitely I think there is an opportunity there for Ayton to put up at least 40 or better against Milwaukee at 6,800. He'll be a great, great play. Rudy Gobert at 7,900, not bad. He has solid home and away splits, so I just want to mention him as well. 70% field goal percentage, 13 rebounds a game, averaging 41 fantasy points per game on the road. And LA coming in 26th in defending centers, 25th in fantasy points per game allowed thus far this year, but in the last 6 games, they have allowing 40.6 fantasy points per game, pretty much a 41 spot. So I love to see that over the last couple of games. They gave up the big notable games of 54 to Vucevic, 58 to Nurkic, and 54 to Ibaka over the last 3 out of the last 5 games that they have faced the Lakers as far as against centers. So definitely Rudy Gobert is in play. So again, a lot of guys I mentioned there. I like Vucevic here. If you want to pay down, definitely Gobert at 7,900 is not a bad play. Then you got Nurkic in a great play here. Better play on DK. Definitely have some exposure. I will have some exposure to him on DK at 6,600. And then you could come down. I think Ayton and Kanter in both here and on DK are fabulous plays, especially Kanter being at 6,700 and only 6K on DK. If he could play the minutes that we love to see from him, 30 or better, he can definitely smash 40 or better in this matchup here today against New Orleans. And that's pretty much where I'm at. Other than that, I mean, I am also going to have some exposure to, and I've mentioned him already twice, is the third time I'm going to mention him, is Dwayne Dedmon. You know, Alex Len is still a little bummed out, okay? He's still banged up, and there is no Al Horford today. No Al Horford for Boston, so he's definitely in a good position. He is trending upward. As of late, at 5,000, you only need 25, so I wanted to mention him as well because I really like his numbers. And 31 minutes in the last game. Obviously, when we knew Alex Len was going to be out, he got minutes. If he gets 30 or more today, he'll be able to smash 1 fantasy point per minute or better. As you can see, he is a 30-point, 34-point upside. He already put up a 40 spot against Boston earlier this year, or at least last year. Yeah, last year. Last year he put up a 40 spot against them last year. And Boston, let's go over here to the cruncher. And let's go to Mr. Dedmon, Dwayne Dedmon. And I just want to double check that because I did write that down earlier. Yes, he put a 40 spot against them last year. And again, right now, no Alex Len, no Al Horford. Definitely Mr. Dwayne Dedmon is a nice fine play at only 5,000. Like I said, only 25. He is 4,200 on DK. He is fabulous there, and you only need about 20, 21 to meet value there. Definitely a number he can definitely reach, especially with these guys out, with Lynn being out, possibly being out. And even if Lynn is not out, he's still going to get 20 to 25 minutes. But with Lynn out, it'll be even better. And on top of that, we already know that Al Horford is out. Boston is 4th in defending centers, 14th in fantasy points allowed to centers, which they're doing very, very good against centers. But in the last few games, the last 4 games, they allow 31.9, so pretty much 32 fantasy points per game. So that's why you got to look at it. You can't look at it the entire season. Sometimes you got to look at the last 3 or 4 games, see how they're trending, how they're defending, and whom they have been facing. So who have they played? Well, in the course of the last 4 games, they have played Cody Zeller, who put up 25, Gorbert twice, 35 and 44 respectively, and Serge Ibaka, 32. And in the 5th game, it was Nurkic. They gave up 39. So again, there is room there for Dwayne Dedmon, if he gets 30-plus minutes, to be able to put 30-plus fantasy points. At that price tag of $5K, you only need 25. So I definitely like Mr. Dedmon there as a value player center. So again, I gave you a lot of guys that I'm going to have some exposure to. I hope you guys like the video. Again, please drop a like on the video. Again, there will be a link here in the description of the video to help you guys out as far as if you guys want to be a part of our chat group. We're about 70 strong right now, so we'll more than welcome anybody else. That's a complete invite. It's totally free. The only thing you have to do is click the link, take the invite. If you're not a part of the Slack app or something like that, you just have to set it up, and then basically you are in there, and you'll be able to interact with a lot of us. We go over the slate, and a lot of guys put in there. They show their lines, and we just work with one another and try to help each other out, and that's basically what it's all about. We're not all sharks. We all just want to be able to be consistent winners and be able to help one another out to be able to win every single night. So again, make sure you come and be a part of that. Other than that, I mean, any of my results I basically will share on my Instagram account, so that'll be at DFS Zone on Instagram, where I always put up some clips. I will be putting up the clips from yesterday. I did win a little bit yesterday on football, and of course the winnings and any of my scoring from Wednesday's slate, I will put that up as well. I did not reach the 300. I think on Wednesday I did not reach the 300, but I still cashed some money. I think it was in the 280s, 290s. So my 5-game streak of 300 plus has come to an end. I will be trying to get back into the 300 club again today. So we'll wait and see. Well, anyway, that's basically it, ladies and gentlemen. I wish you guys a lot of luck tonight, and I'll see you guys for tomorrow's slate.